more than 28% of their pay before tax on rent. New figures from property portal Zoopla show people are spending more of their wages on rent than at any other time in the last 10 years. Average rents for new lets have also risen, jumping 10.4% in a year, making it harder for people to afford places to live. James Gwynne, lettings manager at Worcester-based estate agents Nicol Co. James, afternoon.
Thanks for having me on.
A pleasure. Thanks for coming on. Now the pleasantries are out the way, let's get down to business here and talk to you about rent prices. And well, how is the lettings market in Worcester, and certainly as far as your company is concerned?
Yeah, we're seeing definitely a very busy time. And what we're finding at the moment, just sort of in line with what you've been saying there about rent prices across the country, it's definitely reflected here in Worcestershire. We cover Droitwich, Worcester and Malvern, and we're seeing the same in all regions. I've got to be honest, it's mainly being driven by demand as more so than anything else. I think that simply at the moment, there aren't enough properties available to rent in the private rental sector. So I've got some stats here that we took from Rightmove, which is obviously one of the partner companies we work with. Over the course of May, we listed 20 properties available to let, and of those 20 units, we had 829 lead through Rightmove. So that averages at about 41 individual parties per property trying to rent a house. So obviously it works like a market, doesn't it? So when you get that sort of level of demand there across the board, naturally the reaction is that rents go up, and you combine that with interest rate and you combine that with where we are with inflation, and you've got a bit of a perfect storm really at the moment.
As we're talking to you, I may as well highlight a property of yours. I've just come across one, which, although you've closed applications on this particular one, so it says here, this is Washington Street in Worcester. You're going to look at somewhere in the region. Is this typical for this kind of property? £850 per calendar month for a two-bedroomed property. That's again, it's a not insignificant amount, and certainly slice of someone's monthly wage.
It certainly is. I mean, I've worked in the rental market now for about 11 years almost. Going back only 6 or 7 years ago, the same sort of property to rent was probably renting at about 600, 625, something in that region. So it's definitely significantly climbed. The numbers that you sort of mentioned in terms of rent rises year on year is definitely what we're seeing. I think Rightmove was suggesting we're up in the West Midlands about 9.2% at the moment. So yeah, it is $850 for a two-bedroom is very, very commonplace, as is sort of getting on to something starting with a 1,100, 1,200 for some three bedrooms. And so it's rent definitely at a high rate at the moment.
And you've, again, further down, there's another on Southfield Street there in the city. With both of those properties, less than a week since they were added by your company, say that applications are now closed. That's less than a week. Is that indicative of just how much demand there is?
Absolutely. On both of those properties, we're talking 20 plus applications that we've received. I suppose that's difficult for us to sort of indicate how do we control the rental values. At the moment, what we really need is more supply into the market to help that along. It almost sounds counterintuitive to, improving regulations and everything else. But I think what we could do with really seeing is an improvement really in the volume of properties into the market.
Part of the problem, I guess, as well, is many of these will be owned by private landlords who have experienced the recent mortgage rate rises and are paying mortgages for these houses behind the scenes, therefore are needing to have a rent that kind of at least allows the property to wash its face.
Some of that is definitely true. I think that it's a bit of a mixture because we've also, a lot of the landlord clients speak to, they've definitely got a heart. And when we have the conversations with them about their situation with their mortgage, they're really debating whether it's fair to their tenants to sort of, does it work to either work through it and try and sort of take on a little bit of the cost or not. There's a lot of sort of mental debates going on for people at the moment, most definitely. I think if there was changes sort of legislation for landlords in terms of things like mortgage interest tax, and if things like that were changed slightly, I think that it would benefit landlords to be able to at least pay a little bit of less something so that they can harbour a slightly lower rent, or at least get more people interested to bring that demand down. So that's what we're really sort of hoping to achieve, over the next few years. I don't know how that looks from the government's perspective, but yeah, that's what we're looking at the moment.
We'll see. James, appreciate your expertise. James Gwynne is lettings manager at Nicol Co in Worcester. 4 to 5, BBC Hereford and Worcester. Hand with this picture, will you? Is it straight?
To the left,